What's up, guys? Hope y'all are doing well today as we look at another time together for devotion. I'm going to be spending some time in Colossians chapter 1. Colossians is a great book, and chapter 1 is best known for like verses 15 through 23 when we look at the supremacy of Christ and his preeminence is the subheading that it would say, his divinity. And as we look just before that, though, we see something that Paul asks of God. And if I were to lay out the question, if you could ask God anything and you know that it would be granted, in the way that you ask, what would you ask for? Kind of like this Aladdin magic genie thing. What would you ask for? Many of us would think of something materialistic, a car or a newer car or a set of AirPods or new shoes. We might ask for something like that. If you're Aladdin, you might ask for the princess, right? But Paul, he thinks of something much more significant than that. And I think if you were to think for a moment, you would realize that materialistic thing would one day fade. We need something more substantial. Paul, he asks for in verse 9 and 10, from the day we have heard, we have not ceased to pray for you, asking that you may be filled with the knowledge of God's will in all spiritual wisdom and understanding. Paul points to us and says, those of us who have this understanding of why the Lord is doing what he's doing, and those of us who have this kind of knowledge of his will, what is God at work doing, those of us who have that understanding, says that we would go on to walk in a manner worthy of the Lord, fully pleasing to him, bearing fruit in every good work, and increasing in the knowledge of God. I think that's something very interesting as we see this kind of like uplifting cycle where we grow in the knowledge of his will, spiritual understanding, and wisdom. Then we, because of that, walk in a manner worthy of the Lord. And because of that, we bear fruit in every season, bearing fruit in every good work. And what does that do? We increase the knowledge of God. So it's kind of like this cycle. Grow in the knowledge of God, we live worthy of him, we bear fruit, and then we continue to grow in the knowledge of him. And it's this cycle of life, this cycle of, the Christian life for us. And so my hope is that we would look at something like verses 9 and 10 from Colossians 1, and we would see, it is good for us to pray that we would understand what the Lord is doing. I know times in my life when I have, experienced a tragic event or just a season of difficulty or just like a dry patch in my spiritual walk, when I can look back at those and have that spiritual understanding and say, oh, that's what God was doing. That's what God was preparing me for. That's why God led me down that road. Look how it gave me resolve. Look how it gave me spiritual strength. Look how much I love Jesus now. When I can look back and see those things and understand those things, it makes it all worth it. And so for those of you, I know as a high school student, you go through rough patches, dry spells, difficult events, difficult seasons of life. If we can look to the Lord and pray that we would understand his will and understand his doing in our life, that we would have this kind of knowledge, then I think we would be set up for a much greater enjoyment in the Christian life. We would be set up for a much greater appreciation for the Lord's work, and we wouldn't question and we wouldn't doubt, but we would find that we would live a life fully pleasing to him. So I hope that encourages you guys today, that we would pray and seek things far beyond materialism, but seek the knowledge of God's will.